Hey everybody, it's Brian Hunt, and I'm your host, and welcome back to another episode of Risk On, Risk Off. As we know, we've followed the show, we talk about risk in all its different facets, and whether it be as far as geopolitical issues, supply chain issues, um, overall risks that happen to the construction labor. There's a lot of things that can go wrong and bump and disrupt your operations. But also, one of the biggest risks any person or any individual can ever undertake is starting your own firm. I've worked with a lot of sole proprietors, gentlemen who've started their own firms, and I have the utmost respect for them. And it's a pleasure to have them as clients, but knowing that I probably don't have that sort of risk tolerance to start our own firm. But it's kind of a rare combination where I'm excited to have this conversation again, where you've got individuals who are experts in helping firms understand, identify, and quantify their risk and help them with their business continuity planning to help reduce the risk. But then when rare time, we actually have those individuals who actually start their own firm, which is probably one of the largest risks a person can ever do. So I had the good pleasure of having these two gentlemen on my show about a year ago when they just started their firm. And so I was really excited about having them come back on to give me an update about what's going on with their firm. So at this point, I'd very much like to introduce my good friend, Mr. Chris Wegman. Chris, how are you, sir?
Hey, very well, Brian. Thank you very much for having us today.
My pleasure. And then also this time, I'd like to introduce his partner, Max Glodde. Max, how are you, sir?
Good. How you doing? Good to see you, Brian.
Good to see you again. So, gentlemen, obviously this is going to be an interesting conversation because you're at that nexus where you're helping clients reduce their risk, but at the same time you are taking on one of the largest risks individuals can do by starting your own firm. And we're not going to necessarily, if everybody who's out there watching, this prior video is out there on the YouTube channel, which you could find, and you want to watch the full conversation as a prep for this later if you want to go back do some homework. But just so we kind of normally start, gentlemen, sort of like we talked about last time, for playing that modified version of Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, Where in the World is Chris Wegman and Max Glodde today?
Sure. So I'm happy to start. Chris Wegman. I am a managing partner and co-founder of MEO Continuity. I've been working in risk management consulting for almost 20 years now. Started right out of college. I worked for a technology startup company out of college and then worked for FM Global for nearly 13 years, doing things like business income values, business interruption exposures, and business continuity. And that's really where the genesis of MEO came about. So we noticed an opportunity in the market, and that's what Max and I and our other partners have decided to endeavor on our own company to solve that problem.
And Chris, you're in New York City, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
All right. And so Max,
Good to be back. Yeah, my name is Max. I live in Greenville in South Carolina. It's very hot right now. My background, very similar to Chris's in that I was also at FM Global for a long time. It was a great time there. Before that, it was at Accenture in London as well as Boston. And so, background in really financing. And of course, now just over a year into the MEO journey, as it were. So glad to be here.
So Chris and Max, obviously, I've got a little inside info as far as, your background, because, Chris and I had the good pleasure of working together. Yep. So knowing about the service you provided as far as, business impact analysis as a cornerstone for business continuity planning. And, I know back then how we were doing things as far as, a lot of Excel sheets and, taking down notes. But then knowing that there was a bigger concern in the marketplace. And I think we've all kind of seen it. It's evolved over the years from, back when I even kind of started, it was, Katrina and Rita, Sarbanes-Oxley. Now we've got increasing severity and frequency of named storms, cyber attacks, supply chain disruptions. There's a lot of things that seems like it's, the term we talk about these days is polycrisis. There's a lot more things out there these days that can make your operations go, come to a grinding halt. So Chris, Max, real quickly again, when did this idea of this firm sort of come about?
Well, I can take that. Yeah, the idea for it came about just a few years ago, honestly, and it was really born out of the work that we were doing at FM Global, where we would do these analyses just the same as you did, Brian. And we would prepare these monstrous Excel spreadsheets and these long Word reports, and it was good work. And a lot of people are doing good work in this space, but what we recognized was that it was very difficult to replicate for a client. So you'd leave it with them, and then they wouldn't necessarily be able to update it. You give somebody a spreadsheet, they're going to break it. inevitably, right?
Yeah.
And you give them a word report and they change one number and they don't know what the implications are on all the other numbers in that word report. So we just endeavored to really find an easier, simpler way to do this and make it more repeatable, because as you said, the need for this type of analysis and this type of product is becoming more and more relevant as there's more and more named storms. The world's becoming a very risky place to do business, and we saw an opportunity there. So that's why we started MEO Continuity, to create a software platform where people could do this on their own. We don't want to necessarily do the work for them. We want to empower people to do this work on their own in a simplified version.
Good. Max, would you extrapolate on that? Would you agree or add anything to that?
Yeah, I definitely. I obviously agree wholeheartedly with what Chris is saying. I mean, for me, I love seeing now that people using our product and we see it out in the wild. And I remember the first day, it was a while ago now, but where a client was like, "Hey, what do I do in this section?" And I turned the laptop around and they go, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And it's like, "Oh, I'm working in MEO." That was a really cool cornerstone moment of, okay, it does stand on its own 2 feet. And of course, since then we've come a very, very long way, where you now have many, many people in there adding their information, quantifying risks, building mitigation strategies, building plans. And it's really cool to see how people in companies come together through our platform. You have people from distribution, people from manufacturing, people from corporate. They're all contributing in their own way to this centralized place, so that when you go to build those mitigation strategies and those BCPs, it's not just an exercise in, I'm not going to say, theory, if you will, but it's really about, hey, we think we can move production to another site, but then let's talk to the plant manager and bring them in, and let's bring regulatory affairs in to say, okay, well, here's how you're actually going to do that, right? Because that is real mitigation. That's making sure we can keep making our product. So we love seeing that through the technology that we're providing to clients. You can't do that with a spreadsheet.
No, absolutely not. So let's rewind the clock, gentlemen. So we had this conversation about a year ago, and you're pretty much like right out of the starting blocks, starting to get things rolling. So maybe you want to even, how you say, let's say, we're talking July of last year, August of last year. What was going through, as far as what were some of the early efforts you had to go through as far as to kind of get this thing up and running?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk a little bit to that. I mean, you of course have product building, right? Yeah. There is an immense amount of work, money, time that goes into building something that's simple. It's a cliche, right? Everybody says it. It's a lot of hard work to make something very simple.
Yeah.
I actually have a quote on my desk from Albert Einstein. I've had this for years, right? Everything should be as easy as possible, but not easier. That's how I look at it, right? So there's a lot of work that goes into that. You need an incredible amount of just persistence with, it's not quite right yet, we need to hit it again, and that will happen over and over again. So there's that. And then of course you have the all the other stuff, the business side of sales, of getting people on board with what you're doing, finding those early adopters that are willing to take a chance on you. The benefit of that is they also get to influence what you're building quite a bit. Yeah. And really keeping what was really important to us is to keep our ear close to the ground on listening to customers and being able to pivot and shift when someone says, I see what you're trying to build, or I see what you are building. What would be really great for me as a customer is if you did X.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to evaluate and see if it makes sense. But that's how we are able to stay very nimble and really build something that is what customers want, not what we think customers want, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it does. Well, to that point, so that's a key part, like anything else, any company organization, that you're trying to add revenue, because without revenue, you're not going to exist for long. So you go off on your own, you're starting this, but then the question is, you must have had a sense of what companies or firms would be interested in this, but then how did the process start to try to get in front of certain companies or clients? I mean, how was that early marketing process started?
It's interesting because we don't have a dedicated marketing professional or anything like that on the team right now, although we are thinking about adding one. But really what it was just getting out in front of people, right? presenting as many RIMS chapters as we could, go into Risk World, etc., and putting the product out there, because we knew already that there was a demand for this product. Otherwise, we wouldn't have done what we did.
Yeah.
So this is what people were asking us for.
Yeah.
So once we had it to a place where it was marketable and it was commercially viable, then it was just a matter of getting in front of as many people as we could. And it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort, honestly.
Yeah.
That's why we brought in recently a full-time head of sales to sort of pound the pavement and to make those calls and to be that person that's in charge of doing that. And we found that that's a very, very valuable piece of our company right now, because otherwise it would be just, a handful of us doing the work, selling the work, marketing the work, building the product. So you just run yourself too thin at some point. So we found that as an early hire, a dedicated head of sales was a very, very valuable thing.
Well, one of my favorite influencers, for lack of a better term, especially in this stage of my life, as far as we all listen to, I like podcasts and read and watch. Scott Wegman. I mean, not Scott.
It's my cousin. Scott.
No. Oh, my Prof G. Scott. I'm having a brain fart right now, guys. I'm a 25 year old, 50. Prof G. And what he thinks is constantly all the time is his podcast. Greatness comes in the agency of others. And as far as I think the great thing about that is, like, you can only do so much individually, and you can't scale. But in order to get to the next level, you're going to have to find individuals that you can trust and enable to go out and do what you need. And especially as someone like myself who's relatively new to business development, it ain't an easy job. I mean, you got to have thick skin and be told no, and you got to be persistent, because it is not one for the faint of heart. That's exactly.
Yeah, and that's a very good point, Brian. It's a point that I wanted to make in terms of one of the things that I've learned in this journey over the course of the past year or so is, and again, it sounds cliche, but surrounding yourself with good people, and not just that, but sort of checking your ego at the door throughout this process, and taking advice from individuals who know more than you about starting a business, right? About, how to launch this thing, et cetera, is extremely important. And you really need to be open and willing to that, because, we know more than most about business continuity. We don't know more than most about fundraising or about contracts or about anything like that. So you really need to surround yourself with good people and not think that you know better. So I would say that's been a really, really useful and valuable learning process throughout the course of the past year.
All right, so the name came back to me, Scott Galloway. So Prof G. Took me a minute here to come back to it. So, but Max, obviously, I mean, we talked a little bit yesterday. Is I'll talk about, like, in my neck of the woods when I deal with clients who are construction, and you don't necessarily want to pay more or spend more money than you have to, but you also, I could tell you the stories. I can see the stories where someone, rather than getting a maybe experienced accountant or financial person to become like your controller or CFO, they rely on their spouse or their cousin who doesn't necessarily have any background in accounting, and you can find you got to do a massive amount of cleanup later to justify that. I mean, Max, how would you sort of elaborate on that as far as getting the right people?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's critically important to get those functions of compliance, accounting, those things that can really bite you if you don't do them properly, right? If you don't spend the money now, you're definitely going to spend it later. Is kind of the way you need to look at that. Now, we're working on a lot of stuff like SOC 2 compliance for our platform, things of that nature, because it's important to our clients, it's important to us. It's not cheap. So do you want to spend that? No, of course not. But you should. So you're going to, because it's the right thing to do. As far as, those critical functions of accounting and compliance and legal, you have to have professionals in your boat, especially when you're talking B2B operations, which is what we are, right? Yeah. The contracts are reasonably sizable. Like it's all very important, and you want to make sure that you have the right level of representation and that things are done correctly. So
Max, since you just brought it up, would you please elaborate a little bit quickly what SOC 2 compliance entails?
Yeah, your SOC 2 compliance is basically all about making sure that you are treating data correctly, like securely. So think of it in basic terms, like make sure you encrypt removable media, make sure that your access protocols for both all of your digital assets or places. So whether it's the platform itself, whether it's your HR management system, anything like that it's following best practices in terms of data protection, security, things like having single sign-on, multi-factor authentication. Those are all really good things that are in place to make sure that you're handling data securely. And it's a framework, right? So it's almost like, I want to say, like one of the golden standards of, yes, we are handling your data securely, appropriately, in all the right ways, right? So that is, and typically when you do a SOC 2 audit, the better one is a SOC 2 type 2. So for those that don't know, it's a 3-month audit window. So for 3 months, the auditor is going to be with you and observe how you run your company, how you treat issues, to then give you an evaluation of, yes, you are SOC 2 compliant, or well, hopefully, or not, right? So, but and you have to do that every year. That only lasts a year, right? So it's a pretty, it's a thing you're going to have to do forever, right? If you're serious about it.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point. This is sort of like the bigger, someone made this comment, I read this, like, in order to reduce risk, it costs. And by that, because if you want to be able to stand in front of your clients and show that you are SOC 2 compliance, that's a regulation, but that is to help provide them comfort and understanding that you are doing best practices to maintain their data. Well, in order to do that, I'm sure to get an auditor to come out, that required some, laying out some capital,
just a little
bit, which you probably would like to have spent on some other things, but you need to get that compliance to get your clients to be on board giving you your data. So it's kind of, you got to pay to play. It's part of
and in most cases, honestly, Brian, it's like it's fine if you don't have it, like obviously, because you just have to go through a whole lengthy process with each client they will review your compliance, they will do all that stuff. This just helps speed up the process, make it more efficient, and you're able to message that out. So it is a good thing to do. Yeah.
So, gentlemen, again, a year ago, you started off. You probably had a business model, and you had a plan, and you had some milestones to hit. But something tells me along the line, you probably had some curveballs thrown at your way and thought that you might have to pivot or go in different directions. And I'll just put this out there. We talked about this. I mean, this is part of your social media. I was really excited to see that you guys were spending quite a bit of time down in Mexico. And so maybe you could elaborate on that and say, was that part of the initial plan, or was that something that sort of evolved organically? So
that was something that evolved organically. It wasn't part of the initial plan. We were happy to go down to Mexico. We had an early adopter client who had several locations down there. And it was interesting because that was a client that initially wasn't even, they were interested in our process, not necessarily interested in our platform. And once we did a few projects for them, then they started it all in Mexico. They started to realize that they need the platform, so it was like they weren't necessarily going to be able to continue this or scale this initiative unless they had the platform. It would just make it so much easier for them and much more efficient and cost effective. So it was really an excellent process, and it was a great experience. And Max and I, despite one night of Montezuma's revenge, we had a good experience.
The last trip was pretty intense. The last day was rough. But it's funny. It's just coincidence that it's Mexico, but we're pretty excited. We have a couple of projects coming up here in various countries. We're going to Finland, we're going to Czech Republic, we're going to India. So there's cool stuff happening because that's where clients have their operations. And honestly, the technology is what helps them identify risk, quantify risk, build plans. When we come and do these things with clients, very often what happens, you do 1 or 2 of these onboarding workshops with them with a site, and the clients go, oh, okay, I get it. I can do this, right? I can do this by myself, or I just need limited support. Because the intent, again, is very much the technology is supposed to enable a risk manager, whoever's charged with this type of work, to be able to take it home, operate it themselves, update it regularly over time. Because as you know, this whole idea of business continuity, business impact, it never ends. Anyone in the space, and I think I said this last time, is job security forever.
Well, yeah. I mean, I kind of like in my line of work, we say insurance, like it's one of those areas like maybe time it's kind of recession proof because you need it whether it's good or times are good or bad. And then I say, we talked about earlier, with my earlier guest I had on, Juliet Kyman, he's a professor at Harvard Business School, talks about risk. She was assistant secretary of state, or assistant secretary of Homeland Security on Obama. She's written a couple books, most recently, The Devil Never Sleeps. And the purpose of that title is like bad things, the devil, bad things, risk, never go away. They don't take a break. They don't go on holiday. And, I could give you some stories of this past week of my daughters in their car. It always happens at the worst time. But part of that thing is being, we talk about this in this term more often, is being resilient, is improving your ability, your firm's organization to, take a punch and get back up. But in order to do that, you got to know, what's important, what's not important, what you can or can't do based upon your current operations and any change you need to make. And it's hard to do that without doing these assessments. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Brian. You can't plan for everybody in the world punching you, right? But you can plan for where it might be coming from. That's what we're trying to address. Yeah.
So for everybody who's they're watching it at home, if this is your, as if you have a question for either Chris or Max, what you can do, look at the bottom right-hand corner. You're going to see my picture, and next to it is an oval that says add a comment. Please type any question or comment you want me to bring to these gentlemen's attention. I'd be happy to do it, as long as you keep it clean. We'll keep it clean. So I'll bring it to their attention. But if I can circle back, guys, for a second, maybe this goes back to the origin of your firm. So this firm that you're doing work in Mexico, without giving names, how did this opportunity come about? Was this because of prior relationship, or you were at a RIMS event? I'm curious how this sort of got in your radar.
This one in particular, prior working relationship, I would say, and just sort of, hey, what are you doing? I'm doing this. Oh, that sounds really interesting. I might need your help, right? So they kind of happened that way. I will say, shout out to RIMS. Like, they put on a really good event in San Diego this year that we went to and we exhibited. That in itself, exhibiting at a conference like that, I have a really strong appreciation for a company's marketing team, because we had to do all that ourselves. And planning for that was a nightmare. But once we got there and got set up, the event was fantastic. And we got a lot of great, it was the first time we put ourselves really out there in the market. And it was an excellent event.
So let's explore that a bit further. So if people haven't watched it, they haven't been to RIMS. I mean, way I described it, RIMS is the big, bacchanalia, for lack of a better term, for risk nerds. I mean, it's a massive, massive thing for risk insurance carriers, brokers, and people who need their services. And so this past year was in San Diego at the convention center, correct?
Yeah, It was a great location.
So that's, everybody goes to RIMS, or they, I've never been, but guys like me, where Comic-Con is, it's massive. It's a massive, massive convention center. And so you guys are there. And there was I think I remember I was in Boston one year when they poured it. Yeah. There's always some big exhibit hall. And I assume they had you in an exhibit hall, right? Mm-hmm. So how many other exhibitors were in this room with you at the same time?
I mean, some official person can probably tell us, but there's several hundred exhibitors. I mean, it's a lot. It's a big show.
No. Okay. So they got you there, and I think I saw some photos. You guys had your booth, you had your banners, you had your matching polos, you're all standing behind. So how did that, for people who've never done that or thought about, okay, was this going to be a good use of our money?
Yeah.
How was that process? Like, first, you had to get, I'm sure you had to get there early, set up your tables, right? So
if you only knew the process.
I lost some, I think I lost some years of my life.
Back.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. We very much bootstrapped it. You can pay to have everything done properly, or you can carry all of your setup stuff in golf bags and snowboard bags and set it up yourself. And that's kind of what we did. And it was really, if I may say so, it was a very great kind of bonding experience for the team, because we had just had a new member join of our executive team. And, we got to stand there and give our pitch 1,000 times each over the course of 3 days. It's fairly exhausting, but it was a really good opportunity, like a crash course in how to pitch this thing, how to sell this thing, who you should be talking to. And the other nice thing about RIMS is that everyone's there. So if you're ever going to get an opportunity for a meeting with somebody from a company that you really are interested in or that you think would be a good partnership, that's a very good time if you can just get a slot in their schedule, because it's very busy. But that was the other great thing about RIMS. We had a lot of great meetings in addition to just, sitting there and, giving our spiel at the booth, which was, it was very fun, a lot of laughs.
And also just cool to reconnect with, like, it had been a while, and we obviously saw all our friends from, FM Global and other companies. And it was just really cool to reconnect with those people and be like, hey, how's it going? So we all in all, when you're starting a company, it can get quite like lonely, because you lose. I get to, for a year, I'm staring at Chris's face hours on it. I see him more than I see my wife, and it's fine. But it was just good to get out. And then, of course, you've got your client projects and stuff, and those are fun as well. But no, it's honestly, if you're building a product and you are in a place where you have tested it a little bit in the market, you've got your early adopters, and you now have something that can stand for the most part on its own 2 feet. Going to those, if it doesn't matter what industry you're in, going to an industry related event like that with a booth, because with a booth, people come to you and talk to you. If you're just going there as an attendee, it's very difficult to talk to so many people. It's definitely worth doing and worth the investment. I mean, it was really worth it.
But the other thing, Brian, is that we didn't necessarily know that going in.
Okay.
We had to make a choice to say, okay, we think this is going to be worth it, and we're willing to spend this money. We're willing to put up this capital, and luckily, it turned out to be worth it. But sometimes, you just have to take that chance.
So, I mean, that's a very good point. So, I was coming next stage, and we actually have a question that came in, but I'll give you a second. So, you must have. How many individuals do you think your team interacted with at RIMS? Actually got to talk about what you guys do?
There were 4 of us talking to people. We generally had it in teams of 2. I would say 400 to 600 people.
Wow.
I would say 500 people. Yeah.
That's 400-600 touch points at different carriers, brokers, maybe clients. So that's
the companies of all different sizes. And you learn a lot from just those short interactions. Like, what is important to a smaller firm, a smaller company, is going to be very different from what's important to a really, really big company in this space. A practical example of that is in big companies where they have many, many teams working on many different things. To them, it's more about, how do I effectively administer my BCPs and my mitigation strategies, right? If I have 100 locations, it's more about having dashboards like what we have in MEO. We have dashboards to show you status of the BCP, size of the exposure based on dependencies mapped. If it's a smaller firm, like 3-4 locations, the risk manager is also the one that's doing the analysis. So giving them then a tool to actually do the dependency mapping and do the mitigation quantification. So it really is it's nice to hear that however you cut it, we can scale into whatever they need, but they based on size, they have different needs.
Yeah. And the other thing, Brian, is that, we met with 500 people probably. And even if, let's say 80% of them are not necessarily fruitful, it is beneficial to just us, because you're still giving that pitch 500 times. Like, you're going to get better,
Trust me. It's all about batting practice, man. The more you get the hits, the better off you're going to be. So, first question, gentlemen, from the audience. This is Eric. With AI being a hot topic, have you guys thought through how it would help MEO?
For sure. AI is definitely a hot topic that has been batted around and chatted about quite a bit. Without sharing too many nitty-gritty details, AI is going to be coming to the MEO platform in a way to just further help simplify the risk manager's job, and also really enable them to just get more done with the limited resources that they have, right? There are really strong applications in looking at supplier exposures, helping you write better business continuity strategies, and also just the nature of people operating in many different countries is just the simple ability to do things like translations that don't sound like you use Google Translate, but you actually use the person to do it, right? So those are like massive improvements to just make the job easier. Again, MEO's third line on our thing is simplicity, right? We want to make it simple. So that's how we're going to be using AI, is to really build out tools that help our risk managers just be faster, better in the space.
Well, Eric, you touched on that point. I'm glad you brought it up because it helps me connect. I was thinking when you were talking about you're going to Mexico, the Netherlands, India, and I was like thinking about, okay, so where's the language issue going to come into play as far as you just everything being English? Or I think you just kind of help answer that question, that you're going to start leveraging AI to try to hopefully make it a little more customizable to the local operation.
Yeah, I think eventually the goal is to offer MEO in many different languages, but being able to just flip between, I'm sitting in the US, I speak English, I'm sitting in Germany, I speak German, I can toggle, and it'll translate everything, including the inputs from the users, so the strategies and all that, into those languages in a way that makes sense. To when you read it, you're like, okay, this isn't just some weird translation. So that's some powerful stuff.
Yeah. So the idea is we want people to be able to write in MEO in their native language so that they don't have to overthink it, but we want it to be able to be translated to English, etc., in order to be interpreted, because
it's always a funny story. Like, it's really funny to us when we go to foreign places and we do a workshop. So Mexico being the place, and you ask a question into the room. It's like, okay, I don't know. Let's say you have a grinding process, and you say, how are you going to mitigate this grinding process over here, right? And then then next thing you know, everyone starts talking in Spanish to each other. They talk for 10 minutes and they discuss it and they do this and they do this, and they just turn around and they go 42. And I'm like, that's the answer. So, but what is lost in that? Yes, you got an answer. That's good. We have a mitigation thing. We but what would be great is if all the stuff they just talked about in Spanish, take some of that, put it in the platform, let AI handle the translation and get the genuine response. Right. So that is that may seem like a small thing, but we think that's going to be really powerful.
No, I think it's massive, and I think just from my perspective, being on the broker side, having the carriers on the broker side, I can tell you this industry is ripe for disruption, and I think artificial intelligence can. I think there are some people, some firms out there doing things where you could upload your contract and have it compared to your insurance policy. And rather than like having a human maybe take a couple hours to do that, it should be able to populate any potential deficiencies or gaps in coverage within minutes. Still, there's a human area component, you got to go back and check it. But talking about this efficiencies and taking something that would take 4 hours now, maybe reducing down to 30 minutes, that's time saver.
Yeah, and we have some really, and once it comes out, we can talk more about it. We have some really exciting things happening on the supply chain side on that front. So that'll be
yeah. And to that point, so if I give out names, so the firm you guys are doing work with in Mexico, was that a manufacturing, telecommunications firm? I'm curious, can you say what they kind of did?
Yeah, we have two one makes rail cars, so what you see rolling around, and then the other they make the dental company, dental device products, things of that nature. So those are all very good.
Yeah.
You see one of their tools.
Okay, very good. So as you guys have been out there talking and marketing, have there been certain areas of the sectors of the economy that have been more receptive to this, less, or maybe a little dubious? And like say, manufacturing been very positive versus say, telecom. I'm curious.
It's been a bit surprising because obviously, as we discussed last time, the sort of industries that make the most sense are those that rely upon some sort of physical asset to do what they do. Yeah. Right. So whether that's manufacturing or contract manufacturing, et cetera. But there's also this push from the more softer occupancies like financial firms, law firms, consultancies, where they're a little bit more heavily regulated. So they have to do these things. So there's that push as well. And although we haven't really delved into that market so much right now, I do think there's an opportunity there because, they have to get something done. And this is a simple and easy way to do that. So we still kind of are sticking to our bread and butter, which is manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, chemicals, stuff like that.
Hospitals too, because they need buildings to do what they do. Right?
Sure.
But there's also a need on the software side as well.
Very good. So maybe kind of circle back. So again, it's been a year since you guys have had this. What would you say if you stopped and thought about it? You say, one, that went as well. That went the way we planned it, or at least we thought that would happen. And then two, what came out of it was like, oh my God, we didn't think about that. I'm curious to think about, you had your plan, you're moving forward, but what were the things that sort of came out of left field that said, oh, we didn't think about that?
I think for me, there's positive curveballs, and then there's those that are not so much fun, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Let's start with the not so much fun ones. That everything takes longer than you think. It just does, especially when you're building product, and especially what MEO is. MEO is a highly interconnected tool. It's like you change something over here, it'll affect something on this other screen because that's how it's supposed to work. From a development perspective, that presents a lot of challenges and can cause delays because maybe you didn't explain it well enough, or you didn't think of something and then it was understood differently, right? Because you have technical teams that have to translate what you want into reality. So there's a big push there, and we've got a great team on that front that's helping us develop a great product. So we're proud of them for pushing through, and that's awesome, right? So that's like the only one that I would say, okay, that was unexpected, but from there, I would say, positively speaking, a positive curveball was there's actually a lot of interest from not just risk managers, but from other departments that are using what we're doing in totally different ways. Like last week, we were at a global distribution center, and the person that's running that site is like, hey, I get we're building BCPs and it's really important and we're building strategies, but because of how we map and represent effectively what we call a digital twin of the company, it gives them, from an operational perspective, information that they can then use to drive decisions in completely other areas of the business, like why are we distributing everything through this one place when it makes more sense to do this? So really bringing people together in a way that we didn't think or didn't anticipate was going to happen. So that was cool.
Yeah, very much so. If you, I'd like to ask this guy's question. I'm curious if you don't want to give away proprietary information, let me know. So is the software something that firms buy from you and then they host internally on their servers, or are you guys in a cloud system where you're controlling?
Yeah, we are all cloud-based.
Okay.
So to this day, we don't yet API into anybody else's system, which is good, and which is good because it makes the setup really fast for clients. Yeah. But I think down the road, we're going to start looking at some integrations for those that want it. Yeah. So you're getting a real-time feed from their ERP. But it's all cloud-based at this point.
Okay. There's also some benefit to being able to provide an on-premises version of this as well, but it hasn't really been an issue for us yet. So at this point, we're all cloud-based. Okay.
Well, I mean, like anything else, and this is anybody who's on the cloud, yes, you have resiliency, but at the same time, when the Russians want to cut a server cable, or if the CloudStrike update jacks up everybody's Microsoft platform, that could be potentially an issue. So, I mean, it's one thing we all know both well, especially amongst everybody. There's never, the cloud doesn't exist like the cloud. It's still some server's rack or server in a data.
Yeah, of course it is. Yeah,
maybe in the middle of New Mexico or something. But yeah, it's still out there somewhere. So
no, of course, and you want to make sure that you have the appropriate failovers in place so you can switch between your servers, right? So East Coast, West Coast, those types of things. But that's all way outside of my technical knowledge, to be honest with you.
No, understood. So Chris, I mean, obviously from your perspective, the same question I asked for Max, what's been the good curveballs and the bad curveballs the past 12 months?
Well, I would say that, very similar to Max, the bad curveballs have been just timing. Things take a long time. Signing a client takes a long time. Getting development done takes a long time. And you just have to sort of adjust to that reality. And then it sort of becomes okay and you get used to it. Good curveballs is there's something about entrepreneurship where when you have a big win, it just feels so good. You know what I mean? And you can celebrate with the people who who have put in so much hard work and time, and you've been sort of grinding together for a long time. And when something finally hits, it's a different feeling. You know, it's like hitting a home run in baseball. Like, you did that, right?
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
So it's that's what I've appreciated most about it, and just the thrill of just being able to build something with people who you trust and care about has been really, really rewarding.
I will say I love Mondays.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like I wake up on a Monday. I'm like, let's go.
All right.
So, like,
nice.
it's cool. And then I do struggle to compartmentalize my weekend, where I'm like, okay, let me also love Sundays, right? Because it's just how it is. Or, you're half the time you're just working.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that bleeds into the next question, and that's a question I think I ask almost any entrepreneurs, but you guys are definitely in the forefront of this. Being an entrepreneur is not a 9-to-5 job. And as a result, but each one of you has families as well.
Yep.
How has that process been, in the sense, like, I know you guys want to spend as much time with your kids as possible. You also have commitments to get things out for a client, and there's always, your partner's got to be your right hand on that one. So I'm just kind of curious. I mean, if someone's out there watching this, and thinking about being an entrepreneur, what would you tell them as far as the family life balance?
Well, what I would say is that it's both better and worse than having like a regular job. Right? Because we are working on our own schedules, and obviously we have client deadlines and stuff, but you can take your kids to the doctor or to camp if you have to, more often than not, but you also might be working late into the night and on weekends. So it's more flexible, and at the same time, more demanding. So it's tough, but everything that we do, we're doing for our kids. You know what I mean? So that's the trade-off, I guess. And having a very supportive partner is absolutely necessary. And luckily everybody on the team has that. So we're all very, very blessed. And but it's necessary, honestly, because otherwise it could get rough when you're working those Sundays or traveling Sundays or because that does happen.
No, amen. So again, if anybody's watching the show, if you have a question for either Chris or Max, look at the bottom right-hand corner. You can see a picture of me next to an oval. It says add a comment. Please type in your question or comment to these gentlemen. I'll bring it to their attention as long as you keep it clean. So gentlemen, next 12 months, what's the plan for the next 12 months as far as adding new people? What's going to happen?
Yeah, I mean, big plans for the next 12 months. We're just sort of it's really ramping up heavily now, which is awesome. We're starting to go through funding rounds. We want to staff up. Can we build a team of 20 people in the next 12 months? That would be great. Mm-hmm. Obviously, some of that's driven by customer demand and stuff, right? Like, how quick is the uptake? But there's a lot of exciting things coming from the business end, but also from the technology end. We don't ever stop building.
Yep.
So next 12 months is really just going to be focused on let's fill some seats with some people that want to keep building great things, right? So we're out there now. I think soon we will be out there looking for to fill a CTO role, so Chief Technology Officer role. Looking at filling roles in more also on the operations side as well as the sales side. So we're looking at all angles, but those people, they're coming into a startup. I don't expect you to outwork myself or Chris or Eric, but it is a grind, but it is a lot of fun. It's very rewarding. Yeah. And there will be up days, there will be down days. That's okay. But that's really that's what's going to happen over the next few months here. So it's pretty exciting.
So a lot of the time here, guys, I want to take a time. Can you do a little crash course on funding?
Oh my God.
And talk about, let's say how you started, and then what's the plan? Because there's all these different levels of funding, and what is that hoop, jumping through hoops, how does that play out?
So what I will say is before I'm going to disclaimer this
Okay.
is that there are many, many more people in this world that are much better at this than we are.
Which is
we
why
are just
advisors.
we brought on some excellent advisors into our company to really help us with that process, and we've learned so much from them even just over the last few months. And I will say, funding, just like sales, I think will absolutely test your resilience to no, right? Like you want to get to the no as fast as you can, because you're just otherwise it's just a waste of time. So I will say you're gonna hear no a lot. But what's really important is, can you tell your story in a very effective way that showcases this is a good business to invest in. It has lots of legs to grow. It's not just lifestyle, like, oh, it's just me running around doing consulting. That's not it. Obviously for us, we're tech. So the funding process, I think, is challenging, but it's also super rewarding because you're meeting some really intelligent, really smart people that are really going to test you on your thesis, on what you're doing. They're going to ask you the questions that you didn't want to ask yourself necessarily because they're uncomfortable. But no, I would say anyone that's going through a process like that, again, like I said, we are just at the beginning of that journey. So there's so much we don't know, but hats off to those people that are going through it, because it's a full-time job, and there are a lot of traps you can fall into. I don't know. That's just my thought, but it's exciting.
Yeah. Chris, anything to add to that?
Very similar thoughts. It will test your fortitude, and I think, but every experience we've had with the pitch and, those conversations has been instructional and educational for us. So I feel like we've gotten better and better and better over time. And this goes back to a point I made before. Find somebody who knows, right? It's like, we've never done this before. So find somebody who has and have them help you. And, that's that. I think that's the most important thing. That's what we're currently doing. And, things are looking up. So,
well, obviously, Chris, you're based in New York, so obviously everybody knows the world about the financial center of the world. There's a lot of options there. But are you exploring options as far as, like, have you been, say, talking to people in Silicon Valley because you're kind of tech? I mean, I'm curious, is it sort of across the board, or are you sort of focused on certain cities or locations?
No, it's pretty much across the board. I mean, you have local resources, of course. Like, I live in Greenville. Even here, we have funds that do that stuff. So we're really kind of agnostic as to where they come from. What we want to find is the right partner. And so again, what I was going to add to what I was saying earlier is, if anyone that's out there and listening to people, or you're pitching to people and they say no, and you heard, I don't know, 100 no's. That doesn't mean what you're doing is not valuable. It just means it's not valuable to the person you're pitching it to, and maybe they're not. Maybe it's just not good. It's just not right for them, right?
Yes.
So that's okay. And then for us, we pitched before, and it was like, all right, well, this isn't really going the way we wanted to. Like last year, you know what? Let's get back to work. Let's keep building. Let's show them. Right. Yeah. We luckily were in a position financially to be able to do that. Right. You're not always going to be that way. Right. But we were. So now let's go again. Right. So it's much easier when you have revenue.
No. Amen.
Just revenue, but recurring revenue. That's what the VCs want to see.
Sure. Well, you bring up two good points, because what you just kind of walked through, as far as, it's not the extreme, but the whole concept of raising funds and going with that capital formation. It's not much different than an insured having to go out and try to find a carrier that wants to sign off on the risk. Now, if you do, you get yeses probably more than you do in capital raising, because it's a different dynamic. But there are certain industries, like, say, if you're a condo builder in the Gulf states, there's a lot of carriers that want to touch you. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah.
So it's finding the right carrier, an underwriter that understands your business, and then that's the same thing I imagine with the private equity guys, venture capital guys. They want to, not everybody has a taste of the Kool-Aid, but some guys do. And so
and it's interesting because what we're doing is sort of so niche that it takes a while. It takes a lot of deep diving for somebody to even understand what the point of this is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So and you have to be willing to go through that process with them. in order to get to the finish line.
Awesome. Gentlemen, this has been a fantastic conversation. I really appreciate it. It's been good to hear what's been going on the past year. And it sounds like it's successful, but also sounds like a lot of hard work. So if I was to say the one last question, I would ask either one of you gentlemen, Emmy out there, what's the one piece of advice you would give to someone, knowing what you guys have done the past year? I don't care if somebody's going to start a construction firm or, start their own medical office. What's the one piece of advice you give anybody who wants to be out on their own?
Ooh.
The one piece of advice I would give is, if you really believe that you have a good idea, just go for it. You know what I mean? Take the leap and believe in yourself and believe in your process, believe in your product, and go for it. Just do it, because otherwise you may wind up regretting it. So and even when times get tough, believe in the product, believe in the idea, and just keep pushing forward, and ultimately good things will happen.
I would say for me, if your worst case is that you have to go back to a 9-to-5 job, that's not a bad worst case. Yeah. So the only way you lose in this is if you stop showing up. So, that's really it. Like, you just got to keep going.
Awesome.
So,
guys.
Anyway.
Perfect. No, it's been great. Chris, Max, again, thanks for your time. I know you're busy, you're a new firm, and we look forward to having you back a year from now to get an update on what's been going on.
All right. Looking forward to it. Thank you, Brian.
You bet. You bet. Okay. Well, that concludes another show, Risk On, Risk Off. Again, it's, we talk about a lot. The biggest risk you're ever going to do is sort of starting on your own. And then when you're starting a firm that deals helping clients reduce risk, it's kind of a strange juxtaposition. But once again, it's been great to have Chris and Max on the show. This episode, like all others, will be available on my YouTube channel, in which you can stream and see not only this episode with the conversation with Chris and Max, you can see their prior conversation and kind of look at it, compare and contrast what's happened the past year. Like all time, guys, if there's a certain topic or individual you want to see on the show, please send me a note on LinkedIn. Until next time. Bye.